Story 1. Am I the golden child or just a good child? I'm in my 30s with a sister in her 30s as well. Recently, she started telling me I'm the golden child, but I don't feel like I am. To me, the golden child is the one who is constantly bailed out, never held accountable, and can do no wrong. I was the kid that followed all the rules. I didn't skip school while my sister did every day. I instead worked 30 plus hours a week, took AP classes, was involved in multiple extracurriculars, and graduated in the top 10% of my class. I was the first person in my family to attend and graduate college. I worked sometimes 50 plus hours a week while in college full time to make ends meet. Over the last 15 years since I've graduated college, I've held down a stable career and bought a house on my own. I also regularly visit my parents and help with cleaning, cooking, and running errands. My sister also helps out, but she also needs financial help, so it's like she does it in exchange for the help. My parents provide anywhere from 25–30% of her monthly expenses, and she still complains about them keeping track of how much they give her in the hopes that she will eventually pay them back. I honestly don't think it's fair that I've worked my ass over for years and live a modest lifestyle so that I don't need their help, and my sister, who makes terrible financial decisions. Her car payment is more than my mortgage, and she spent $5,000 on rims, gets bailed out whenever she needs it. To me, that's the golden child. She thinks that because they lecture her about her financial mistakes and what they think are problems in how she parents and runs her household, that means she's treated unfairly. She also argues with them when they ask her to do something. I watched them ask her to do something at least 3x a week for 3 weeks until I finally did what they were asking her to do. She said something to the effect that she was just about to do it and that I was just trying to show her up. I told her if she had done it the first, or hell, even the 5th time they asked, I wouldn't have had to do it. Every time I come to visit my parents, I end up having to clean the house because she's visited with her kids and let them mess up the house. I'm sick of cleaning up their messes, doing the things they've asked her to do, and somehow still being called the golden child. To me, I'm a respectful daughter who does literally any and everything my parents ask me to, while my sister will fight and push back on more than half the stuff they ask, or take forever to complete the tasks. I honestly feel like she's the golden child just because she gets so much help and is so entitled about it, while I don't ask for anything because I know my sister's taking so much from my parents. Story 2. Am I the asshole for telling my mom I won't be the good kid for free anymore? So, some context. My mother has 2 children, me, 24, female, and my younger sister, 15, female. Her and my dad were never together, but when she got pregnant with my sister all those years ago, she married my stepfather out of wedlock. My stepfather is much, much older and was pretty wealthy at the time. When my mother decided to marry my stepdad, she packed me up and moved us 4 hours away from my grandparents, my primary caregivers since I was born, and my dad. I won't get too far into what my life was like after I moved in, but it is worth mentioning I suffer from diagnosed complex post-traumatic stress disorder and severe anxiety from my years of living with them. My sister never had a chance. From the start, she's been spoiled. Not just spoiled, spoiled rotten. As the years went on, I tried to tell my mother and stepdad that she would not just grow out of it like they said she would. I've had friends compare her to Veruca from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. She screams, throws things, hits people, threatens to lie to cops, calls our mother a whore, fat cow, depressed loser, and calls her father an old man. For heaven's sake, she called her 95-year-old grandmother an old bitch and stomped on our other grandmother's foot. She is out of control. What is done about this? Well, their idea of discipline is nothing. Her dad is considerably older and doesn't want to make her hate him for the short amount of time he has left with her. So he leaves the discipline to our mother, who is mentally very unstable and crumbles easily. Because my sister is so outwardly difficult, I've always been revered as the good child. To be clear, me being the good child included my silence and compliance. I had to be responsible and mature for my age because my stepdad and mother were not. Because of this and some guilt, my mother and stepfather have always overly relied on me. I'm the one who placates, who mediates, who tried to parent their kid but was constantly undermined. It caused me to have several severe relationship issues as an adult. After high school, I moved out and went to college. I attended therapy and started to learn that my people-pleasing from living with them was crippling me. So I've slowly started stopping. The last key component to the context is that my mom and stepdad do not support me. Even when I lived with them in high school, every dime for lunch money or new clothes came from my grandparents. Even my car was given to me by my grandparents at 18. They've paid 1 semester of my JUCO, roughly $2,500, and to their credit, they did pay for my braces when I was 10. However, this pales when compared to the $10,000 a semester they spend on her private school tuition, her $1,000 monthly allowance they put on her debit card, her new Porsche car, which she can't even drive yet, plus so much more. My mother even asked me to give up my birthday last year to attend my sister's cheer nationals in Florida, which I did to be a good sister. But there was no such thing for me when I was in high school. For the record, I understand most of this money is my wealthy stepdad. I am not delusional to the fact that I'm not his kid and therefore shouldn't expect support from him. However, they expect me to support them. Now I'm at a head. I've always relented and gone to my mother's house on Christmas Eve to wake up and open gifts on Christmas morning because it's important to her. But I don't believe I'm there because she wants me to be, but mostly so I can meditate. My sister always makes a spectacle of Christmas Eve. Last year, our mother put $4,000 worth of gifts under the tree for her and me both, and my sister was not happy with a single gift that she asked for. I'm talking, screaming, throwing gifts in the trash, biting, scratching, all at 14 years old. Christmas Day has always ended in screaming and tears. I hate Christmas because of this. This year, I wanted to spend it with my grandparents and see my dad over the holiday. This was not taken well. I get told by my grandmother that I'm the only thing keeping my mom sane. It was implied a good kid would want to spend time with her family and sister on Christmas. And I told her that my younger sister has gotten so much more than me: money, opportunities, support, etc. And she is horrible to our mother and gets rewarded for it. Why should I be a good kid if I'm not getting anything in return? Why should I spend a holiday with family that makes it horrible over my grandparents who are actually supporting me? My grandma said that this was a horrible thing to say. She begged me not to say this to my mother and to just put up with it. This is not how my grandparents raised me to be or think, but it's not so much about the money as it is just the blatant usage of me. Some part of me feels greedy and spoiled for being upset over the difference in support, but somehow it still just feels so wrong to keep giving in to them. What is keeping me at bay is that my grandparents have never steered me wrong, but I sometimes wonder if what was done to me gets forgotten about, because my mother is mentally ill and does suffer, and my sister is like this because it's all she's ever known. I can't help but feel like I can't relent on this one, though, that my boundaries are being trampled. So, am I the asshole for wanting to say this to my mother? If yes, what else do I do? Thank you in advance for reading. Story 3. Once the golden child, I made a list. The grief is real. A little while ago, I, 30, female, decided to go out of contact with my family. The decision came after months of deliberating. I moved back home months ago. It's something my mom has been begging for years. Her plan is to have us all in the same house, even when we marry, so that we can financially support her. None of us want this, but she's been at it for well over a decade. I moved out the first time when I was 18. As expected, things have gotten pretty out of hand. I'm her scapegoat, and the emotional, mental, and even sexual abuse I've been in denial of is so evident now, especially after years of therapy. I thought my siblings were my saving grace, but it turns out they will scapegoat me as well to be in her good graces. I don't blame them for this. Every child wants their parents' love. It's a primal desire, even if the parent is a raging narcissist, and the cost of gaining that love is being a bad person. Note, a parent's love shouldn't be something you have to work for. It should be given freely and unconditionally. I spent the majority of my life thinking there was something wrong with me or I was a problem, and struggled a lot with suicide ideation because it was made clear to me, verbally, that my very existence was a mistake. I finally realized that it wasn't me and had never been me. The reasons these relationships have worked in the past is because I was willing to be who they wanted. The shift was evident when I began choosing myself. The guilt I had for not being able to maintain a healthy relationship with my mom ate at me, but now I'm seeing it's her who really has never had a healthy relationship with me, as I am and not as who she wants me to be. Being a good child meant shrinking myself, my needs, my light, and allowing her control. As I set boundaries, it was impossible for her to build a relationship with me, even when I tried. The decision to go no contact was liberating. Though I still have no clue where I'm going to go or how, I've always had this strong sense of loyalty to my family, despite the toxicity, because it's a part of my culture. That, paired with some PTSD that impacts my memory. Plus, I have ADHD. It's often easy for me to forgive and forget. I decided that in order to not backtrack on my choice, I needed to make a list. Every time something happens where I am belittled or talked down at or treated poorly, I add it to the list. And every day since I've made the list, I've had to add something. Every single day. To the extent that last night I didn't even want to write. The list is already so long, it physically hurts me to see it, and I become emotional every time I do. I can't believe I've lived like this for years, and it's no wonder I was always trying to leave the country and live abroad. I'm not sure why I'm shocked, but the feeling of real grief is something I wake up to each day. It's the loneliest feeling ever to grieve people who are still here in front of you. I know I'll be okay, and I know I'll find my tribe eventually. It's just really heartbreaking to finally see the truth and know that this isn't a way to live or be loved. To know that it isn't family over everything, which has been my anthem my entire life. To know how truly unloved I've been this entire time. How I would never treat a child like this, let alone my own when I'm finally blessed with one. Aside from my therapist, there's no one I can really share this deep grief I feel. I'm at peace. I'm actually happier than I've ever been because I'm finally free. That doesn't take away from the loss of a connection that was never really there. Story 4. I am a golden child turned scapegoat. I, 28, female, did not realize that I grew up as abused as I was. It was my normal. I have other siblings, but I was always mom's favorite. I didn't want to be, though. The pressure was so intense. My dad left my mother when I was 8 years old. My older brother, who was 11 at the time, told our dad to take us with him, begged and pleaded, but the custody agreement was set. I didn't understand at the time what was going on, but I stupidly defended mom, and I became the golden child. I'm also the only girl. After dad left, mom got a minimum wage job and had my older brother and I take care of the younger siblings. The twins were in diapers still, and my older brother refused. I became a mom at 8, but I didn't know it. Mom told me that dad didn't love us, dad didn't pay child support, dad didn't want us. I believed every word because I was 8, and my dad just moved 1,000 miles away. I was devastated. Growing up, I never had friends because the twins needed me. We moved closer to my dad, but still never saw him. He didn't have time for us. He didn't want us. He's a bachelor now, and he's going to enjoy it. That's what I was told. I did all of the cooking, all of the cleaning, and all of the parenting. By 11, I had taught my little brothers everything they needed to know to get into kindergarten, or at least I tried to. Mom was relentless in parental alienation. She told us lie after lie, and by the time I was 12, I was brainwashed. We saw my dad maybe once every other month, and I shut him out. How dare he do this to us? How dare he not love us? I hated him. I hated how hard I had to work because he couldn't be a dad. She fed into my anger, and it worked. I got a lot of praise from mom for things. I craved it since I didn't get it anywhere else. My older brother took punishment after punishment for things that were ridiculous. She forced him to drop out of high school at 16 to get a job because now she was too sick to work. She married an absolute walker of a man when I was 14, and older brother was 17. Older brother left because he hated everything about our family. He left to get a program in the state we used to live in and got on with his life. I don't blame him now, but back then I hated him too. Stepdad and mom separated a mere 5 months after they married. Mom wouldn't go to work because she was sick, and she came to me begging for help. I was the good child who she could always count on. I was the good child that never talked back. I was a good child. When I turned 15, I found a way to get a fake ID and get a job working as a ranch hand. Then, a second one delivering newspapers in my mother's rundown geo. Mom fed me lie after lie. Dad still never sent child support. Older brother abandoned us. The twins needed my help. Every single night from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., I delivered papers. I went to school. My grades were just above passing. I don't know how I didn't drop out too. And I made sure the twins, 9 at this point, had food and clothes and toys for Christmas and birthday. Mom stayed home in her room dying of some mystery illness. Little did I know she was going out partying when I wasn't home. When I was 17, I joined the Army. I just barely got my GPA and credits good enough to walk, and I'd be celebrating my 18th 2 weeks before BCT. Mom was trying to get disability pay, and I knew the money was going to run out after I left, so I finally reached out for help. And my little brothers got taken from mom and given to my dad the week I shipped out. I felt bad that they were going to someone who didn't care that much, but he had money since he worked in a trade. I was planning on trying to get custody of the twins when I was in the big Army. No longer Army training and doctrine command. I didn't stay in the Army for my entire contract. I got severely injured and medically discharged with a monthly pension. Things didn't go as planned, and I was out 2 years after I went in. I decided to return home to mom. At this time, I didn't know she was a narcissist, and tried to pick the pieces of my life up. I worked as much as I could while healing from my severe injury, and mom did not work. She collected a mere $700 a month from SSDI, and I gave her all the money I made from my part-time job. It wasn't enough. We ended up homeless just 5 months after I left the military. Mom and I were homeless for years. She told me how none of my family even tried to help me. The twins were in high school, so they couldn't. But my dad and older brother never tried to help. My mother was extremely sick, and I had to do a lot for her. But I was a good child. I did everything she asked, but it wasn't enough. It was never enough. When I was 25, 2 of my brothers visited us, my older and one of the twins. Mom helped us find a place with her old fling after our parents separated. He's a nice guy. I feel bad for him. We got to spend Christmas together, and I was so happy. Except I was still working my ass off, and I couldn't do anything fun with them. I didn't get PTO. My job actually has the holidays blacked out for PTO. So if you don't use it before November 11th, you lose it. And I was still cooking, cleaning, making this woman every goddamn cup of coffee she ever wanted because she needed me. She was still sick. One night I came back from work, and I overhear Mom complaining. I stopped to hear what it was. I thought she was talking about our dad to my siblings, and the most vile of statements about me were said. How I was lazy and nasty and never helped out. How I was mean and insufferable and demanding. I never did anything for her. My heart shattered and I turned around and went back to my car and just drove off. I dialed my dad's number for the first time in years, and I don't even know why. Next thing I know, I'm on the side of the road and I'm screaming, crying at him. If only he had just sent the child support, I wouldn't have had to give up my life. How no one loves me and I hate it. The only words my dad said were, "I just sent you every receipt from the state where they took the money out of my check and immediately sent them to Mom." And my life shattered even more. 3 months later, when Mom was in the hospital for something I now know was self-inflicted to keep me around, I ran for my life. I packed whatever I could into a rental car, and my older brother came and got me. I waited 8 hours to text Mom that I was no longer in the state and not to look for me. I blocked her number and I ran all the way to my dad's house, now 1,500 miles away, since Mom's friend lived halfway across the country. She tried calling anyone and everyone to find me. She called my older brother to try and say I was having a psychotic break and needed to be found. It was a bad day. 3 years later, 28 now, and I'm free. But I'm also the bad guy. Her self-inflicted illness to keep me there cost her some extremities. And now, it's my fault. She's not invited to family functions, and it's my fault. Her life is ruined, and it's my fault. She's miserable with none of her kids to love her. I'm the new scapegoat, but I am free.